Hello, Jacob here again. Today, bringing you another episode of Let's Ramble Over, Euro Truck Simulator 2. So, this find a job, and I will move on to the topics for this week. So I've played a little bit of this game off camera since the last episode. Done a few little jobs and leveled up a couple of times. Just because I don't want this series to go on forever. What should we do this week? Well, it's been less than a week actually since the last episode. We'll do this one to start with. Just a little quickie. This will probably be a shorter episode than the last one, just because I've got not as many topics to talk about this week. I've got a couple. Yeah, we're delivering beverages by the sounds of it. So let's start our engine, get the wipers going, and this set off on our journey for this episode. So this week's topics, the main thrust of the episode is going to be about something that's happened recently. I was kind of a bit skeptical about it, but it seems as though it's actually happening now. Is it? Oh, that's not a good start. Oh, didn't have our headlights on, I guess. Anyway, so Microsoft, about a week, well, maybe a bit more than a week ago, there was kind of a rumour going around that... Oh, no, it wasn't a rumour, actually. Microsoft's Phil Spencer kind of commented about how the Xbox One is going to be kind of upgradable at some point. And he's kind of talking about various different things, old Phil Spencer, but one of the kind of... He did kind of mention about kind of possible Xbox One upgrades, kind of making the console more powerful over time. And kind of when people kind of asked him about it, he kind of had these kind of weird, kind of vague comments, and he was kind of a little bit... Oh, I think I'm on the wrong side of the road here. Yeah, whoops. I was driving in... I thought I was... we're not in the UK. Got to stay on the right side of the road, not the left. Oh shit. Hit a wall. Anyway. Yeah, when he's kind of taken to task on these kind of comments, he kind of had these kind of weird, kind of vague comments. He didn't really kind of commit to what he'd said. But then... So I kind of didn't really take much credence in that kind of comment, because I kind of thought, well, you know, it's probably not going to happen, because it's not... It kind of seems like a weird thing to do. But then, this couple of days ago, it's actually currently a rumour at the moment, but seeing as... well, basically, there's a rumour going around that Sony are kind of thinking of doing a similar thing, where they're going to release an upgraded PlayStation 4. So they're going to release a kind of PlayStation 4.5. Because obviously, kind of 4K displays are becoming commonplace now. And basically, the kind of I guess the idea is they're going to release a kind of upgraded PlayStation 4 that will, turn our wipers off, that will support 4K kind of displays and be a bit more powerful than the current PlayStation 4. It's not obviously not confirmed yet, but apparently, supposedly it's going to happen. And seeing as Microsoft kind of had similar ideas, it kind of seems as though it's probably going to happen. So that's kind of the main thing I'm going to kind of discuss this on this episode. And after that I will I think I'll probably move on to maybe the Jim Sterling lawsuit that's going on now. So yeah, we've oh shit, almost crashed that. Get through the toll booth. So yeah, as for these kind of upgraded consoles, it's kind of interesting because kind of Phil Spencer's kind of comments kind of made it sound as though it was literally going to be like an upgrade, like you could put, you know, open your Xbox One and put more RAM in it or something, as opposed to kind of releasing a kind of upgraded version of the console. So I'm actually not as negative about this kind of idea as some people are. Some people are kind of saying this is it's an awful idea, it shouldn't be done, just kind of leave the console alone. And in a way I kind of agree, because that's kind of how it's always been, and it's certainly, I think just kind of leaving the console alone, it's kind of the easiest option really. But I'm not against the idea, mostly just because the kind of way I see it, and the way if this does happen, the way I kind of hope it will go down is that Sony and Microsoft will release this kind of updated console, but all you're going to get is kind of maybe you'll get kind of an upgraded resolution or an upgraded frame rate, or maybe the graphics will be a bit better. But if you're running an old PS4 or old Xbox One, you'll still be able to play the game. Because I think the biggest problem with kind of doing these kind of upgrades is that you don't want to kind of split your consumer base. And I'll kind of talk a little bit here about Nintendo, but Nintendo have actually already done this with the new Nintendo 3DS. So obviously, last year they put out the new Nintendo 3DS, which is a 3DS but slightly more powerful. Now the problem with the new Nintendo 3DS is that they have kind of split their consumer base a little bit. Because obviously, it's only happened a little. It hasn't happened that much, but there are games which only run on the Nintendo 3DS, and if you have a regular 3DS, then the content is kind of, it's not available to you because your console is not powerful enough to run it. So obviously there was Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, which was a port of the Nintendo Wii game to 3DS, but that game only plays on new Nintendo 3DSs, doesn't play on old ones. And we have to change lanes here, apparently. Do we? Oh, wait, maybe not. So I was kind of okay with that, really, just as a crash there. Just as a one-off, I kind of felt as though that was justified, just because Xenoblade Chronicles is it's a really big game, and I can kind of understand how that game would run on an original Nintendo 3DS. But about a week or so ago, might be more than that, Nintendo announced that Game Boy Advance games are coming to Virtual Console on 3DS, which is obviously a good thing. Well, it's as good as a thing as the Virtual Console, games coming to Virtual Console can be, because the Virtual Console is kind of a shitty kind of system anyway. But that's kind of a topic for another time, I guess. Maybe we'll touch on that in a bit. But yes, the thing with these Game Boy Advance games is that they're only compatible with new Nintendo 3DS again. And this is kind of the big problem with having these kind of upgraded consoles, is that you don't want to be in a situation where kind of large parts of your audience can't access certain content. Like, it'd be really, really kind of shitty of Sony to put out a kind of half, like a PlayStation 4 and a half. Well, I guess they wouldn't call it that. They probably just called it PlayStation 4 and just phase out the old models, I guess. But then it'd be really kind of crappy to put out a kind of product like that and then kind of say, well, if you want Uncharted, it won't be Uncharted 4, but Uncharted 5, we're putting out, if they're doing Uncharted 5, it's like, well, only available if you've got the kind of upgraded PlayStation 4 kind of thing. That's a really bad idea. I mean, if you're going to do that, then you might as well just call it the PlayStation 5 and just be done with it, because it's not a PlayStation 4 at that point. Yeah, I don't necessarily... Ooh, there's something coming. Oh yeah, we have to drive on the right side of the road. I forgot about that. Almost turned off into the left side there. But yeah, I think as long as these kind of upgraded consoles kind of just give you a slight bump in performance and don't actually affect compatibility with games, I'm kind of mostly okay with it as an idea. Like, if they put out a new PlayStation 4 or a new Xbox One that runs games at 4K and maybe gives you a bit of a frame rate boost and maybe bumps the graphics up a bit, I'm okay with that, really, because the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are kind of came out underpowered at launch. Like the Xbox One especially, but the PlayStation 4 as well, they do actually struggle to run games at 1080p 60 frames per second. Like, really, 1080p 60 should be the kind of standard for this console generation, but a lot of games, they struggle to hit 60 frames per second. Some of them struggle to hit 1080p. A lot of them run at 900p or kind of weird resolutions, just to, like, a lot of developers are kind of have to make compromises in their kind of games in order to get it running on consoles. And it's also kind of a negative for PC, because when you make these kind of sacrifices, it also affects the PC version of the game, because you have to kind of scale back the production in order to kind of get the game working on the kind of lowest common denominator sort of thing. And there are certain games which developers will put a lot of effort into the PC port and get it running really nicely, but quite often it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon to kind of see a game change lanes here. To see a game kind of get a PC port and it's a bit lackluster, just because it was kind of has to kind of work with what consoles can do. Okay, so we're at our destination. So yeah, I'm not really that against the idea. I think one kind of big problem is that with this kind of ideas is kind of creating resentment with your kind of audience. Like one thing that could happen is that certain people kind of get annoyed that their game is not as good as their kind of version of the game is not as good as other people's. Like if you've got a kind of original PlayStation 4 and somebody else who's bought one of these upgraded PlayStation 4s gets a kind of better experience than what you get, that could kind of create kind of a level of resentment. Because I think one of the kind of big positives with kind of console games is that there's kind of this level playing field, and everyone gets the same game, they get the same experience, they get the same frame rate, same graphics, it's all the same. It's obviously great for when we want to kind of developing games as well. That's going to kind of create problems as well. But yeah, I can kind of see a situation where a lot of people kind of are ticked off that their kind of original PlayStation 4 version of a game is not the same game that somebody buying the upgraded version is going to get. Like it would be pretty. I could definitely see. I would be annoyed if I buy a game on PS4 and it runs at 30 frames per second, and somebody bought this kind of upgraded PS4 gets a game that runs at 60 frames per second. That would be pretty irritating, especially when in order to get this kind of upgraded version, you have to drop another $300 on kind of this upgraded console. I think it's probably okay. That's interesting. Let's see if we can have a go at parking. Actually made a successful park off camera. Unfortunately, obviously, I wasn't recording at the time. Ooh, I think we might do it. I'm not sure how straight we have to get this. Ooh. Oh, we had it in then. There we go. T. There we go. Did it. So yeah, let's get another job. Let's do this one. How do we get out of here? There we go, this way. Pretty dry first. So yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, I can kind of see a situation where people are kind of annoyed, especially because when you kind of buy a console, you expect it to kind of last for 5 or 6 years, and it's going to be pretty irritating for people to have bought a console and then just like 2 to 3 years later there's this upgraded version that's available. And yeah, like I said, they can't. Oh shit! I'm gonna go on the curb here. Not a good start. Let's get back on the road. There we go. So yeah, also I can see game developers being pretty annoyed about this idea, I guess. I mean, in a way, it's probably a good thing, because I think there are certain developers who kind of really like to kind of push themselves and make the best game they can, but at the same time having to make having to make multiple versions of games is probably going to increase their workload. What the hell's going on here? We are stuck for some reason. There we go. So like if there's 2 Xbox Ones and 2 PlayStation 4s, all of a sudden you have to make 4 versions of your game instead of 4 versions plus a PC version. So that's 5 versions of your game, rather than 3 versions of your game. Because obviously, if they put out a new PS4 with upgraded specs, I guess that will increase your workload to a certain degree. I mean, I guess that they're probably, it depends on how they do it. Like, I guess they will stick to the same kind of architecture. They're not going to put out a brand new console. It's just going to be like an upgraded version, I guess. So you might have a PS4 that has double the RAM, I suppose, or something like that. Or yeah, I don't know. I mean, oh, balls. Like, it does need to be easy for people to make games for, because I can see a lot of people getting, a lot of developers are being really pissed off if that is the case, where they put out a new PS4 or a new Xbox One and it's drastically, the hardware's kind of different enough to where porting a game over kind of requires extra work. Yeah, it's a really weird situation. I mean, I'm not obviously not a game developer, obviously, but you can't put in like a completely different CPU or a completely different GPU, because then that does actually obviously change the hardware. So I think the Xbox One and PS4 have got AMD graphics processors in them, so they couldn't put out a PS4 with a NVIDIA graphics card in it, because that would kind of drastically change things, I guess. I mean, that's that's kind of as far as my kind of knowledge goes, I guess. I could be talking bollocks, but I guess it's more to do with architecture, I guess, than the actual hardware. Like the Xbox One and PS4 are kind of x86. Oh, they're speeding here a little bit. They're x86 kind of architecture, like a PC. So I guess as long as you kind of stay on that, maybe it won't make that much of a difference. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird situation. Yeah, I've got a whole lot else to say on it, really, other than I'm kind of, as long as they do it right, I think I'm mostly okay with it. Yeah, as long as they don't do it the same way Nintendo have done it with the Nintendo 3DS, I think that's kind of okay, generally speaking. Like, it would be nice to see. I think the PS4, kind of doing an upgraded PS4 kind of does make sense in a way, because obviously the PlayStation VR is coming out this year, and VR headsets are pretty difficult. They require quite powerful hardware to run. So maybe they're kind of thinking that putting out a more powerful PS4 will kind of give developers a bit more kind of headroom to work with VR. Because on the current kind of setup with the PlayStation 4, like maybe in kind of 2 to 3 years down the road, developers might struggle kind of pushing. If they're making a VR game, they might have to kind of scale back the kind of graphics and frame rate in order to get the game running on VR. Whereas if you put out this kind of upgraded hardware, maybe that'll be less of a problem. I mean, actually, even though it's not going to happen this way, but it would be nice if you could actually do it the way that Microsoft kind of hinted at when they're going to kind of do. Because the way Microsoft are very vague in their kind of statements, but it kind of sounded as though they want people to kind of upgrade their console that they've already got, rather than go out and buy a new one. So I think that's the thing that really irritates people, is the idea of them buying a console and then 3 years later it being outdated, whereas if you could just open your console up and take a piece out and put a new piece in, that would be alright, I suppose, because you don't have to go out and actually buy a whole new console. You can just upgrade your current one. But it's not going to go down that way, just because, well, for a start, you know, you're going to avoid your warranty by opening up the box, I guess. But yeah, for that to happen, you have to kind of send your console off to Microsoft or Sony for them to upgrade it for you, I guess. Like, the only way that would work is if the console was kind of designed that way from the ground up to be a kind of modular design that you could open up. Then at that point, why are you even playing on console? Like, you may as well just buy a PC and just do it yourself, kind of thing. Like, the whole kind of point of a console is that it's one box, it lasts for 5 years, and it plays video games, and it's easy, kind of thing. Whereas once you kind of ask people to kind of open the box up and slot in a new graphics card or something like that, like, you're kind of ruining the point of what you're kind of, you know, taking away the reason why people play on console to begin with, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of all I've got to say, really. I mean, my kind of hope is that if they do this, it's just like maybe a slightly more powerful version. Like, they should put out a slightly more powerful console, phase out the old ones, and then just say that, you know, the new PS4 will run, you know, let's just take Destiny 2 as an example. You know, Destiny 2 will run at 1080p 60 on a new PS4, whereas Destiny 2 on a original PS4 will run at kind of 1080p 30 frames per second. Or maybe Destiny 2 on PS4 will run at 1080p 60, but will maybe have slightly better lighting, and maybe will have more kind of particle effects or better textures, and the kind of old PS4 version will still run at a 1080p 60, but maybe they'll kind of tone down the lighting a bit, or it'll have not as nice textures, or the draw distance will be a bit less, and kind of maybe go that route rather than, like, they don't want to be in a situation where games just don't run on old PS4s, because that's a really bad idea. So that's kind of all I've got to say on that topic, really. It's yeah, I'm not. Depends on how they do it. But I think it could work out okay. It's actually, I was going to say that's the end of the topic, but something else I've got to say about it is that it would be nice to kind of see games running well on console, like several years after release. Because I think one problem with the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 was that towards the end of the generation, games really started to struggle running on those consoles. Like, if you look at games that came out in, let's just say kind of 2011, 2012, 2013, you look at games that were coming out on 360 and PS3 during those last kind of 2 to 3 years, and I mean, those consoles were really struggling to run games. I mean, I played Crysis 3 on Xbox 360, and it was a bit rough, to be honest. And I think that's kind of the problem with these kind of console generations now, is that they last for so long. Like, the last generation in the Xbox 360 was 8-year console cycle, and it's kind of a big ask to kind of ask a console to last that long. And yeah, like I said, with Crysis 3, I mean, it was playable, but that was a real rough version of Crysis 3. And it's very true of a lot of other games as well. Like, a lot of games during those last couple of years, like, they really had to tone down the resolution. The frame rates were kind of dropping below 30. Like, kind of muddy textures and all this kind of stuff. And like, the PC was just storming ahead. Like, when you look at stuff like Metro Last Light, Crysis 3, what other games? Just trying to think what other games kind of came out during that kind of era. Even the Call of Duty games were kind of scaling back the kind of resolution and stuff. It's pretty much an industry-wide thing that a lot of games were kind of running at these kind of sub-HD kind of resolutions and kind of scaling back the kind of textures and all that kind of stuff. And like when he did a side-by-side comparison with 360 and PS3 games to PC, it was pretty rough. So maybe that's why they're kind of doing this, to kind of because like I said, the PS4 and Xbox One are already kind of behind the PC already. So maybe kind of doing this as a way to kind of keep the consoles relevant for a long time. Because yeah, it did reach a point where playing on console really was really a kind of a waste of time, almost. Especially once the Xbox One and PS4 kind of came out, because I think now Xbox 360 and PS3 development has pretty much ceased now, but there was a couple of years where developers were still putting their games out on the old consoles, like Metal Gear Solid 5 came out on Xbox 360 and PS3. Obviously Black Ops 2 was another one, but they kind of scrapped the campaign with the old console versions. It's like you look at we change lanes here. Ooh. Yeah, if you look at kind of Metal Gear Solid 5 on Xbox 360 and PS3, that is a Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor was another one. Like those games, like it's not even worth playing on those consoles at that point. So maybe that's kind of the idea, is to maybe put out a slightly upgraded version. Will kind of extend the life of the console a bit. Maybe that's kind of the idea. But yeah, I'm not against the idea, as long as they don't screw over their kind of old consumers. I don't think they will, just because the PS4 sold like 40 million consoles. It would be kind of a really shitty thing to do, to kind of burn those customers, especially seeing as Sony are in such a strong kind of position now that they're in with the PS4. Like it would not be great to kind of burn that many customers and kind of tell them, well, if you want the kind of you have to upgrade your PS4 to this new PS4. Like people are not going to be happy about that. So I think that's that topic wrapped up. I think I feel pretty good about what I had to say there. Yeah, as long as they don't kind of go the new Nintendo 3DS route, I think it'll be alright. But we'll see. It might not even happen, of course. It's just a rumor. We'll see. We'll see. But so I guess we'll move on to the next topic, I suppose, which will be the kind of Jim Sterling lawsuit, I suppose. So, of course, Digital Homicide and Jim Sterling have had a... Oh, I should be checking my speed, actually. We're not speeding at the moment. But Jim Sterling and Digital Homicide have had a bit of a long-running rivalry for a couple of years now, which started with the Slaughtering Grounds. So, I suppose I'll just get out of the way that I am quite a big fan of... change lanes here. This guy's going to let us go. There you go. So, yeah, I've been a big fan of Jim Sterling for probably like 5 or 6 years. I've been following his work for kind of a long time. But basically, is kind of a lot of what he does at the moment is kind of ripping on these kind of really bad games that are on Steam. So he did a video on a game called The Slaughtering Grounds a couple of years ago, which was a game by Digital Homicide. And pretty much ever since then, Digital Homicide have pretty much hated Jim Sterling ever since he did that video, and have basically had out for him ever since then. Of course, Jim Sterling kind of made a big joke of it, and he's kind of done videos on all their other games as well. But last week, Digital Homicide decided to file a lawsuit against Jim Sterling, and they want $10 million in damages from Jim Sterling, which is kind of funny. I'll touch on that in a minute. But yeah, it's kind of interesting in a way. It's not really that much of a surprise, because I think Digital Homicide, I've kind of said it before, that they've made statements in the past kind of saying that somebody will take Jim Sterling to court one day, and I guess maybe they were kind of hinting that it would be them. But I guess they finally decided to do it. One thing that's kind of interesting is that they're asking for kind of $10 million. Like I said, change lanes here. Oh, we're gonna have a crash. Oh, he let us go. They want the one thing I find kind of funny is that they are asking for $2 million of the $10 million that they want is in lost revenue from game sales, supposedly. So they kind of claim that Jim Sterling's videos on their games has lost them kind of sales and kind of dragged their name through the mud, and as a result their games have kind of not sold as well as they should have. And I find that kind of funny because with Digital Homicide, I mean, if Jim Sterling didn't do a video on any of their games, nobody would know who Digital Homicide are. So to kind of claim that Jim Sterling has hurt them, I kind of find funny, because if anything, Jim Sterling covering Digital Homicide's games has probably helped them more than they've hurt them. Because even though he trashes, well, he actually hasn't trashed every game they put out, because they put out a game on early access about a couple of months ago now, and Jim Sterling actually gave it a somewhat positive reception. He actually kind of liked it. So he hasn't trashed every game he's put out, but apart from that one, he's basically trashed all their games. But the thing is that if Jim Sterling didn't talk about Digital Homicide, nobody would know who they are, and they would just be another developer on Steam. Because the thing is with Steam is that once Steam kind of opened the floodgates and let any 2-bit developer put their game on there, I mean, developers like Digital Homicide are kind of a dime a dozen on Steam. But the thing is that most of them, nobody knows who they are, because they just put out a game on Steam, and nobody buys it and nobody plays it, and that's usually that. Usually the worst that happens is that Jim Sterling does a video on your game, but even then, Jim Sterling does a video, and after a couple of weeks you're kind of forgotten about, because he's moved on to a different game. But Digital Homicide, they because they made kind of a big deal about it, they kind of became this kind of became infamous, just because they wouldn't leave Jim Sterling alone, and they kind of let this vendetta, they kind of had this vendetta against him. But yeah, I do find it funny that they kind of claim that they've lost revenue because of Jim Sterling, because if anything, they've probably gained revenue because of him, because nobody would know who they are otherwise. So that's kind of funny. I am kind of curious as to whether anything will actually come of this lawsuit. I mean, it seems kind of likely to me that what's probably going to happen is that nothing will ever kind of come of this lawsuit. I mean, I can't imagine a situation where they actually take Jim Sterling to court and try and kind of beat him and try and get this kind of $10 million that they're asking for. Mostly just because whoops. I thought you had to carry up the road there. That's not good. Oh, I hate reversing this game so much. That's not going to work. Ooh, we're going to get just about. All right. There we go. So yeah, I mean they have asked for donations. Okay, this we won't bother parking here. That's going to be a tricky one to do. Ooh, yeah, leveled up. What should we take here? Let's take long distance. I want some longer journeys, I think. Won't do one in this episode, just because I've kind of run out of topics, I suppose. There's not a whole lot that's really happened. I really want to talk about the kind of console upgrades thing that's supposedly happening. But let's do this one, and then we'll that'll be the end of the video, I think. Yeah, like I was saying, I can't see I'm actually going to court over this. Like, going to court is pretty expensive. I mean, even just hiring a lawyer to represent you would probably cost a few thousand. And plus, you also need to kind of be ready to kind of pay. I mean, obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but presumably if Digital Homicide kind of lost the case, which they probably... Well, you know, you never know what will happen, I suppose. I was going to say Digital Homicide will probably lose, but that's kind of not really how kind of lawsuits work. Usually, quite often the person who wins the lawsuit is the person who can afford the best lawyer. But yeah, if you do lose, obviously, usually you're going to have to pay the person, or usually you have to at least kind of cover the kind of other person's court fees, usually. I mean, I don't really know much about kind of American law, because obviously that lawsuit was kind of filed in America, in Digital Homicide's kind of state that they live in. So I don't really know how it works in America, but here in the UK, usually you would kind of have to pay kind of legal fees if you take someone to court and lose. So they would have to kind of be prepared to kind of have to maybe pay Jim Sterling's kind of court fees if they took him to court and lost, I guess. I just don't know what Digital Homicide are kind of really trying to achieve with this kind of ongoing vendetta they've got against Jim Sterling. I mean, like after the Slaughtering Grounds, they should have just left it alone, because Jim Sterling would leave Digital Homicide alone if Digital Homicide left Jim Sterling alone. That's kind of the funny thing, is that every time Digital Homicide kind of have a dig at Jim Sterling kind of has a dig back at them, and that's kind of how this feud kind of continues on. Like it all kind of started when Digital Homicide did the reviewer video, where they took Jim Sterling's Slaughtering Ground video and did their own kind of response to that video, and then Jim Sterling did a response to that video, and it kind of just went on and on. And then Jim Sterling did another video on one of their games, and then they kind of get pissy about it. They did that thing where they put Jim Sterling in one of their Steam trading cards for the Slaughtering Grounds as a zombie, and then there was the interview, the somewhat infamous interview, where Digital Homicide pretty much embarrassed themselves. I mean, they didn't come across very well at all in that interview that they did with Jim Sterling. And yeah, it's kind of just gone on from there. Although it has been fairly quiet, but I think the reason why it's been fairly quiet recently is because Digital Homicide have been kind of I guess they've been compiling evidence for this lawsuit, so they've been fairly quiet recently. But I mean, yeah, if Digital Homicide had just left it at the Slaughtering Grounds and just left Jim Sterling alone, Jim Sterling would actually leave them alone. That's the kind of funny thing about it, because when Jim does a video on your game, you kind of just have to. The problem is a lot of these developers kind of take it on a kind of personal level, and I think this is probably quite common in game development, where, if you look at AAA developers, I'm sure that a lot of AAA developers get really pissed off when somebody kind of does a poor review of their game. But the thing with AAA developers, they're not, they're not talking to the public. They got PR people or whatever kind of doing that for them. So you don't really see the kind of ugly side of game development, where people kind of lose their temper when you make a bad game and somebody reviews it and gives it a bad review kind of thing. Because I do understand it. I mean, it's not as if even if you even people who kind of make bad games still, you still worked hard on it, kind of thing. And it must be pretty disheartening to work on a project for a couple of years and have somebody just like really, really trash the shit out of it and pretty much shit all over your kind of work for the last 2 years. But at the same time, you kind of just have to accept that that's kind of the world. Like when you make creative kind of projects, if you're making a game or making a film or whatever, you're going to have to accept that people are going to not say nice things about it, and they're not going to say nice things about you probably either. Unfortunately, that's kind of that's the world we kind of live in. And if you kind of can't restrain yourself, and you probably shouldn't be shouldn't be making games, but you probably shouldn't maintain some sort of online kind of presence, I guess, or anything like that. Like Digital Homicide just kind of couldn't help themselves but respond to Jim Sterling whenever he does a video on their game. Like, if you're that kind of person, you really should just step back and just don't engage when people kind of criticize you. I mean, I know that that's what Total Biscuit has done recently. I know Total Biscuit has a really, really hard time kind of taking negative comments, and I think he finally kind of realised that the only way he can kind of continue doing what he does is to just step away from the internet and just not engage with oh shit, need to change lanes here. Just not engage with people who kind of post negative comments on kind of Reddit or Twitter or whatever. And that's really what Digital Homicide should do at this point, is just forget about Jim Sterling and just kind of leave it as it is. Because it's ongoing kind of thing. It's really not beneficial for anyone, really. I mean, this whole lawsuit thing, it just makes Digital Homicide look even worse than what they already do. I mean, I think most people are probably going to be on kind of Jim Sterling's kind of side on this. Like, you look at this kind of whole lawsuit thing and you just think, oh, here we go. Digital Homicide, kind of back to the old tricks again, kind of thing. Except this time it's actually potentially has kind of serious consequences, I guess. I'm kind of curious as to what will happen if Digital Homicide actually win, if this goes to court and they win. Just because, like I said, they want $10 million. I don't think. I know Jim Sterling is he's doing quite well for himself, but I don't think he's got $10 million to give to them. So I'm not quite sure what will happen if they actually win this case. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird situation. Kind of gets back to the whole kind of silencing critics kind of thing. I mean, I guess Digital Homicide's kind of their kind of case is that they claim that Jim Sterling has slandered them and said things that aren't true. But most of what Jim Sterling has said about them has usually turned out to be true in some way. I mean, I know he's made accusations that Digital Homicide have kind of stolen names from other developers and kind of used other developers' names kind of for themselves. Like there was Digital Homicide allegedly put out a game under the name EEC Games, but there was another studio called EEC Games who claimed that Digital Homicide were kind of using their name, but I don't think anything ever actually came with that. Like, it wasn't kind of proved that it was Digital Homicide. Because I think there have been a couple of times where Jim Sterling has kind of accused them of doing something, and hasn't kind of been proven that it definitely happened. Like I said, with the kind of ooh, that was close. We almost crashed into that white car there. Yeah, that's happened a couple of times, but I think kind of maybe kind of 99% of what Jim Sterling has said about digital homicide has either been true or has been kind of opinion. Like I can't think of many times where Jim Sterling has said something that's just flat out false about digital homicide, really. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got to say on that topic, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of all I've got to say, I think. It's a bit of a shitty situation, I guess. Luckily, Jim Sterling doesn't seem too fussed about it. I mean, Jim Sterling's kind of response to this lawsuit was to put out another video on digital homicide about... he put out a new Best Esteemed Greenlight trailers about them, which was kind of funny. We're in the wrong lane here. So yeah, I guess we'll move on to something else, I suppose. Well, there's not really a whole lot else to really talk about, really. I suppose on the topic of digital homicide, I did do a video on... Oh shit, we fucked that up. On digital homicide, kind of as a response to kind of the lawsuit, because digital homicide put out a bundle on itch.io called the Thank God for Digital Homicide bundle. That's kind of the funny thing about digital homicide, is that they kind of carry on this kind of rivalry, even though it's not in their best interest. Like the Thank God for Digital Homicide bundle is obviously them taking the kind of piss out of Jim Sterling's kind of catchphrase. It obviously says "Thank God for me," and they obviously took that catchphrase and kind of for themselves, kind of made fun of it with this bundle. But yeah, I played. We need to change lanes here. Wait, we had a crash. I was indicating where I was going, so luckily we didn't get a penalty for that crash there. Yeah, I played the games in that bundle, and I recorded a video on it. Fortunately, Jim Sterling didn't actually watch the video, which is kind of a shame. I did send the video to him, but it doesn't seem as though he actually watched it, which is quite a bit disappointing. We're gonna have another crash here. Yeah, I mean, what else can I talk about? I mean, I guess I can just talk about kind of the general kind of state of the channel, I suppose. Things are kind of going okay. Oh shit, we need to come off the motorway again. Yeah, things are going okay. Obviously, I'm still kind of making videos, even though no one is. Still haven't really gained much of an audience. A few of my videos have picked up a few views, but generally nobody's really watching my videos still, which is kind of a shame. But still soldiering on. I am planning to do videos on Enter the Gungeon, because that is coming out in a couple of weeks' time. So once Enter the Gungeon comes out, I planning to do a Let's Play on that one. Kind of a... go past then. Yeah, I'm planning to kind of play that and see what that's like. And actually do a kind of proper Let's Play of it, rather than... Because this kind of... these videos I'm doing here on Euro Truck Simulator are kind of more... It's kind of more of a kind of topic show, rather than... a Let's Play. Like the game is kind of more kind of background kind of noise for my kind of discussions, rather than a proper Let's Play. So I'll be doing a kind of proper Let's Play on Enter the Gungeon. So that'll be starting soon. I'm also planning to possibly try my hand at doing a review, because Quantum Break is coming out soon, and I ordered a copy of it because I saw a decent deal for it. There was a deal where you can get Quantum Break and Gears of War Ultimate Edition for £40. So I thought at that price, kind of £20 for each game, I thought may as well. So seeing as I don't usually buy games on release. Well, I almost never pre-order games these days. I used to, but yeah, pre-ordering games is not something I really do unless it's a really, really good deal or something like that. So kind of at that price, I thought that's a good enough deal for me to kind of take the plunge for a pre-order. So I'm guessing that I'm probably going to play through that game and do a review of it, just because may as well make use of my kind of purchase of it. Also, kind of doing newer games might attract a bit of an audience to this channel. Because I think part of the reason why nobody's really watching my videos much is because I'm mostly focusing on older titles. Mostly just because I've got a lot of backlog to get through, and also just I'm doing these kind of older titles just to kind of hone my kind of commentary skills a little bit. Because, you know, my videos, well, to start with, they were pretty poor, but the more I kind of practice, the better I'm kind of getting at making videos. So that's kind of the reason why I've done a lot of these older titles, just to get a bit of practice in, really. So I'll probably be doing that. I'm probably going to maybe do a bit more console stuff in the future. I'm thinking of buying a kind of capture device so I can cover more console games, just because it'll kind of just to kind of diversify the kind of content on the channel a little bit. What else? I mean, apart from that, I'll just kind of carry on, really. Once I may start taking questions from people at some point. Once people actually start viewing my content, maybe I'll kind of turn these kind of rambling discussions into maybe Q&A sessions as well. Maybe I'll probably do maybe a couple of topics per episode, and then kind of maybe take a couple of questions from the audience, kind of thing. Because I think the problem with these kind of videos is that after a while, I usually kind of pick out a couple of topics, and then once I've kind of covered those topics, I kind of usually kind of run out of things to say, which is why I'm kind of rambling now on the kind of state of the channel, just because I'm waiting to get, well, we're almost at our destination to, well, I could just wrap up the video here, but I usually like to finish the delivery before we're kind of finishing the video. So maybe having a couple of questions to talk about kind of when I'm out of topics would be a good idea. They are kind of planning to carry on the first impressions videos that I've been doing. I'm also planning to, I mentioned this before, but I'm planning to kind of upgrade my desktop at some point so I can record at 60 frames per second with newer titles. Because you know, my PC does struggle a little bit running games at 60 frames per second and recording them at the same time. So that's kind of on the cards at some point. Yeah, that's kind of it, really. Just going to kind of carry on. I would like to kind of maybe get some, at some point, have like a graphic designer or graphic artist do some work for me. Just because I'm not a artistic person. So having better thumbnails and having, like, my channel, I currently haven't got any channel art on my channel. Like having like a professional kind of artist do some of that stuff for me would be nice at some point. Like having proper channel art and better thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of turning it into more of a kind of professional kind of product. Because my videos at the moment I'm kind of just making videos and just throwing them up on the channel. Although I think my videos are kind of okay, generally speaking. There's always room for improvement, of course. So that'll be on the cards at some point. But that probably won't happen until I actually start making some money on these videos. Because even though I'm just doing these videos for the fun at the moment, but you know, I can't really justify spending a lot of money on this channel until it kind of becomes viable as a kind of money-making venture, I guess. I mean, if that never happens, that's alright, because I'll just carry on making videos just for fun. But yeah, that is kind of the hopefully the ultimate goal is to maybe make a little bit of money off this channel one day. So we're at our destination now. I really should learn how to put the parking brake on, because whenever I stop at a traffic light, quite often I roll backwards, but I'm not sure how to actually apply the parking brake. I guess I just hold the normal brake for now. So yeah, we'll wrap up the video here. I've been Jacob, of course. This has been another episode of Let's Ramble Over Euro Truck Simulator. And oh, that's another thing I need to improve as well, is kind of my kind of video titles. Like having a proper kind of title for this series would be better. Like Let's Ramble Over Euro Truck Simulator doesn't really kind of tell people what this actually is. So I probably need to do that at some point as well. But yeah, leave us a comment if you want down below if you are watching this. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I would appreciate it if you would. Well, let's get the parking. And yeah, I'll see you in the kind of next episode of this series and in the next video. So yeah, I'll see you next one. Bye.